Good. I just sent out the live notification.
All right, it's working on Twitch. And on YouTube. Okay.
Is that just random gameplay at the background, or what's happening there?
Yeah, I just put some footage I recorded.
I see.
No, I'm just gonna be playing Black Ops 2 while you talk to me.
We can just do a co-op run and then we can talk about it. Well, we can play online and we can get hacked as a live demonstration. And then you do like a freeze frame, like, how do you think we ended up in here? And then we can just talk about it.
What just happened to my computer? Imagine.
That would be kind of cool, honestly.
Yeah. I was saying yesterday, like it would be kind of sick if I just get like an old PC for like $500 and I just like play the old CODs and just see how long it takes for me to get hacked.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. What's up, KN? Bless you, man. Thanks. Where do we want to put the chat? Right about here. Okay. Good to see you, man. Thanks for your support on the channel. Almost always the first one to comment on my videos. What's up, Tactical? Welcome, guys.
Hello from me as well.
Always good vibes. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Okay. I'm just gonna start recording now, and we can just go whenever you want. We can just start going with the questions and all that. I'm just gonna put a little bit of context for everybody on stream. We have Distro TV on the call today. He's here to answer questions about remote code execution in Call of Duty. As you guys know, that's something I do on my YouTube channel. We talk about it quite a lot, especially recently. Distro is a cybersecurity student. He knows a thing or two about these kinds of exploits and programming and all that stuff that just doesn't mean anything to me. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring him on, ask him some questions, get some more context on these vulnerabilities and stuff, and turn it into a video. We were just gonna record this, but then why not just stream it and have questions live as well? But this is gonna be a video on YouTube, edited and stuff. So yeah, if you have any questions or concerns about the exploit, now's the time to ask. We have someone who kind of knows what he's talking about to answer them. So yeah.
All right, thanks for the introduction.
No worries.
But I can just add a bit more context. I am currently a master's student in cybersecurity and probably going to finish my degree sometime at the end of this year. So I've seen plenty, at least in academia. Like I know a lot of theory, and I've practically used or implemented some exploits. Of course, always legally, and I mean it. I'm not joking about that. Always be ethical. And yeah, so I have some experience, and the type of attack we're going to talk about is something I have seen in similar forms as well. So I hope I can share some input that will be interesting and hopefully teach you guys something new.
Yeah, and I just want to put the disclaimer out there that Distro learned about this whole issue in Call of Duty yesterday. So he's definitely not like an expert on specifically RCEs on Call of Duty, but when I was streaming yesterday, he came into my chat and basically we started talking about it and stuff, and I was like, do you want to come on and just have a chat about this, because you seem to know a little bit what's going on, right? So if you have any questions, try to have it be more about the technical side of it, not necessarily like, oh, is Advanced Warfare safe to play in solo zombies? He doesn't know what that means, but he can tell you about the RCE itself, the exploit itself, and what it can do and why it's happening. So that's more the kind of questions we're looking for today. So yeah, just wanted to make that clear for everybody. Do you even play Call of Duty Distro at all? Like, at all?
I played the first and the second one ages ago, and I think I did Modern Warfare Online for like a day. That's pretty much it.
Okay, you didn't get hacked, I hope, that day.
Not that I remember.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so I think you know the context a little bit of like one of the games was released to PC Game Pass, and turns out it was compromised. A lot of people are getting hacked. People are scared left and right. Nobody knows exactly what's happening, why they got hacked. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I guess we'll just jump right straight into it with some questions. I've written a list of questions for you. And also I have some questions from a community post I made earlier today. And we also have the live chat as well. And what's up, 1-2? Let me just post this here. Okay.
I saw Tactical asked the question. I would note that down for later down the line when we explained the general attacks, but we'll get back to that. Tactical Marines.
Yeah, I was
it is
gonna
a good
say
question.
the same. Yeah, it's a good question. We'll tap into that. What's up, JWC? Is the RCE still active? The servers are shut down right now for COD World War II on Game Pass, so there's hope that they're fixing it right now, but you cannot connect to the servers on PC Game Pass right now. As for Steam, I'm pretty sure it's still active. I would not recommend anyone to play World War II on Steam right now. Yeah, I'm also, this is one of my questions for him, Kayan. We'll talk about it a bit later. Trying to break into cybersec field. That doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand it either.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not exactly sure what either of those things are. I think the terminology might be different because I'm from, I don't know, maybe it's, I'm gonna look them up quickly. Maybe I can get back to that.
Okay. All right, I'll save these questions. I'm gonna start with basic stuff, like for anyone who doesn't even know what an RCE is. And then we'll tap into these questions that you guys are asking that are related to that afterwards. But first, I'm going to let you look that up and see if you got any.
Okay. So these are more like technical positions, like clear positions. I cannot give you an answer to that, but I would say you should look up which one you think you see yourself more in working in later. It's basically a very, I know, standard answer, but if they're about the same, just look which one pays better, I guess, in your region. That's maybe not the most helpful answer, but I am not well versed enough in those two specific roles to be able to give you a better answer than that.
What's up, Assassin? Welcome back to the stream. All right, let's start with something simple. For any viewers who don't know what RCE is, have never heard of remote code execution before, how would you describe RCE to someone who basically just got their mind blown that people are able to control other people's PC through a video game?
All right, so you already pretty much gave the definition. RCE stands for remote code execution, and the idea is that you get you change the code flow in someone else's machine or server. Basically, you get code to run that is not supposed to run on a machine that is not yours, and that's literally all there is to RCE as a definition. But we get to this specific attack a bit more, and there are more terms that we'll talk about. But RCE is literally just you get code to run on a different machine when it's not supposed to. You change the control flow, and you can, if it's really bad, you can do basically a lot of things to cause harm.
Yeah, because it's not something specific to video games. It's something that could be like some kind of app or program you have on a computer that's not updated or whatever, and it could have like an RC exploit inside of it, right?
Yes, I think a good analogy would be if you think about websites. If you can get a website to run code on someone who's like calling the website, you open the website and it's malicious, and it gets to run code on your machine. That's technically RCE as well, because you load it from the server, but the code runs on your machine in the end. And as an attacker, that's not my machine, so that would be a case of RCE as well. It is applicable in many places, but in the terms of video games, I think in Call of Duty, if you play online, it's basically the people that are connected to you to play a match. If you get code to execute on one of your machines, that would be RCE in this context.
Okay. That makes sense to me. So, specifically about Call of Duty, then, how would you describe like the remote code execution of Call of Duty specifically? We talked yesterday about like a return oriented what is it called? Programming? Return oriented programming, ROP. Can you tell us a bit more about that and why you mentioned that yesterday? You think this is what would describe it better?
Okay, so as Lollipop mentioned before, I encountered this whole problem or issue yesterday. So I wasn't too well versed about it, but from what I saw, like Lollipop sent me a link on a proof of concept, and what I saw is that it was basically bounce check issue. I can explain that later a bit, but it's. Can you pull up the first picture of that I sent you, Lolly?
Yeah.
Maybe I can just give a rough overview there. We're getting a bit more technical, but it will make sense soon.
You want me to put it on stream or?
If possible, that would make things easier.
All right, hold on. Should be able to do that. What's up, Trevor? Old CODs are still not safe, right? No, they're not. Do not play the old Call of Duty games on PC.
At least not online.
Yeah, you can play offline, no problem, yeah. While I'm pulling this up, let's yeah, pretty much every yeah, exactly, Assassin. What's up, Rio? You're one of the ones who got attacked. How bad is this? I wiped Windows and reinstalled. We'll talk in a minute about how bad this is. Is there anything else I should do?
I can already answer you,
Yeah,
Ryo. You shouldn't worry about it as much. You are fine, especially if, like, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, if you reinstall
We'll
Windows,
talk about.
That's.
We'll explain the exact concept of the attack very soon. Lollipop is just pulling up pictures so I can give a more technical explanation of what is happening.
Okay, I've got it on the screen. I'm just gonna put it up here above the chat. That should be big enough. All right.
Okay.
There we go.
So what you're seeing in the picture is the memory layout on your computer, at least on modern computers, and it's in the RAM, like in your random access memory. And what you see is something called the stack here. And this is a part of the memory layout. And if you look at this picture, the high memory addresses on the top and the low are in the bottom. That's not too relevant. But what is important is that the stack grows from top to bottom. And what you can imagine is a computer when it's running in general is basically just a bunch of functions being called off another and being executed. So it's code that is running. And when a function calls a different function, which happens all the time in the natural code flow of your computer, it happens all the time. You see in that picture, you see something called the return address, and then frame pointer and the local variables. I can explain that. When you're in a function and the function calls a different function now, it needs to be able to redirect the flow to the function again so that the computer knows, yeah, I'm going to execute this other function now. And when I'm done, I have to go back to the first one that called me. So the code flow continues the way it's supposed to. And for that, the address of where the code execution, like the function was called, gets stored in the stack. That's the return address there. And the function arguments are used for the function that is being called, basically. So it knows what parameters to run with. It's some extra information. Like if you want to calculate the square root of a number, then well, actually, let me rephrase that. My bad. Okay, look at the local variables. That's where it gets stored. If you have like parameters, like the square root of 2, you want to calculate the square root of 2, you have a function that calculates the square root of any number x, then you would add 2 in the local variables, and then the function knows, okay, this is the value I'm going to work with. It squares it and returns it. Then it returns to the return address, so where it was called. Now, the thing is, there is a type of memory data type called a buffer or an array. Both are synonymous in this context. And it's basically like a space in the local variables that is static. So you know in advance how big it's going to be. For instance, if you take user inputs, like if you ask someone for the name, then you say it's going to be, I don't know, 8 bytes long maximum as an example, which would be 8 characters in this case. Then the program knows, okay, I have to allocate an array of 8 bytes. It goes into local variables. And now we get to the attack. First of all, buffer overflow. If the called program does not check the input of the user, for instance, so it says like input your name, and it has 8 bytes allocated, and then the user puts, I don't know, 25 bytes in it. What happens is that because the memory grows from top to bottom, what happens is that in the local variable in the buffer, what the user writes down, which goes above the allocated space, enters the frame pointer and then the return address, and even beyond if you want. So basically, what happens is that an attacker can, maybe even by accident, overwrite the return address, which disrupts the control flow, because then when the function goes back, it doesn't have the correct return address anymore. It's just some characters from what the user input, and it's going to crash the program basically if it's something random. But in the attack, you actually change the return address on purpose to a point where you want the control flow to continue. And
So it
in the
doesn't
old
crash
attacks,
the game, basically, right?
so you can execute your own code. Let's say you have, let's say 100 bytes in local variables, in the buffer. You take user input. The user can write something called shellcode in there, which is basically malicious code with the goal of harming you or to have fun or whatever. Basically, what the attacker tries to do is to change the return address to jump back to your buffer to a point where you wrote the code, and that will be executed. But here's the thing. In modern systems, that has been mitigated because memory, and I know this is getting very technical, I'm sorry, but I hope you guys can still follow. I'm trying to keep it a bit lightweight if I can. But what happens is that the memory cannot be executed because that's a mitigation, basically. This OSs were like, hey, it doesn't make sense if we can execute code on the stack. The stack is only there to, it's not there to execute code. It could mess up things very badly because you can literally attack the whole system with that. But what happens then is called like it's a cat and mouse game always in cybersecurity. The next step of attack was to do return-oriented programming, and that's where you basically change the return address that you see in a way that it goes to a place of a function that does something that you need it to do. For instance, if you want to do something specific, like, I don't know, let me think about it. For instance, you want to call a system call of the operation system to close the game, for instance. That's like a random example. You would have to call a specific function and you would have to give it arguments. So what you do as an attacker, you manipulate the stack in a way that functions are called so that the values in memory are the ones you need, and then it calls a function that is a system call, which will execute what you want, basically. And okay, I know this is a lot, but so that's return-oriented programming. You basically manipulate the code in a way that you redirect the flow in a way that you want it to do what you want it to do. You get it to do what you want it to do. And in Call of Duty, because it is a peer-to-peer internet connection, it basically means that every guy playing on the server is connected to each other, basically. So what happens is that you can manipulate the stack in a way that you execute code on someone else's machine.
Okay. And do you think you would need to be host in order to do that to the others in peer-to-peer, or do you think any player could do it to each other?
I'm going to have to look that up in the link you sent me, but intuitively, I think you have to be the host, but let me check that.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that was a lot, but I think I followed mostly what you've said. So the return address is basically the important part for the attacker to modify in order for the game not to crash during an attack, right? Because otherwise the program wouldn't know where to go back to, is my understanding.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Like the return address, that's like the part that's really important for them to modify. Otherwise, the game's just going to crash and it's not going to know what to do.
Yes, basically. Basically, in the return-oriented programming, you manipulate the stack that the return address and the values above are function arguments for the functions you're going to redirect the flow to. It's a bit more complicated, but I've tried to not be too specific.
Okay.
But basically, yes, the return address is something you change to, so it goes to somewhere. You can call it a gadget. You can like scan the program, like the game's code, and see, hey, I want to do something specific. What parts of the code of the game can I redirect the flow to so it does what I need it to do to prepare for an attack?
Okay, I see.
And to answer your question, anyone can use the exploit in a match, but the system that gets attacked is the hosting person's one, if I understood correctly.
Oh, okay. So you could direct an attack to another player, but it would still be the host who receives it, or the host would distribute it, in other words?
The host receives it, and the attack is executed on their machine.
Okay. So if you're host, basically, could you send an RCE attack to everyone in the lobby at the same time, you think?
Theoretically, yes, but let me maybe rephrase what I said before. I said you get the code to execute on the host machine, but it has an impact on everyone playing the game because the host basically defines the parameters of the match, like what map is playing or what is shown on screen. Maybe I don't know exactly what Call of Duty does there, to be precise, but basically the host machine executes remote code, but then because the host parameters changed, and as a player, your game changes as well. Basically, like things on your machine change as well. What you see, basically.
Yeah, because we've seen like multiple clips of the maps being changed and stuff. This is definitely something that happens. Okay, I think that answers pretty well about pretty much how RCE works. Let me check. We had a question from Tactical. He said about malicious intent. How can RCE give up so easily sensitive information? I mean, for sure, it could fuck like System 32 pretty bad. But what about login credentials and banking information? Are they supposed to be encrypted? You mean in Windows? So basically what he's asking is like somebody who with malicious intent who would use RCE to like steal information. I think he's asking like how can Windows not like protect you from that, I guess.
Okay, so this is a bit more complicated to answer simply because I don't actually know what the scope is of the attack here. Like, I don't know what you can, what you cannot do. In theory, you can execute pretty much any code you want, but I don't know about stealing sensitive informations. Do you have like a source on it or something? Did you read something about sensitive information being stolen in the context of COD, or
Yeah.
Can you elaborate, please?
Yeah, it's definitely something that a lot of people say is possible. I'm pretty sure in the proof of concept there might be some, I don't know, like if it necessarily talks about it because it's from 2017, but from my understanding, the RCE you can basically run any code anywhere on the PC. Like to give you an example, you can like we have proof of people changing wallpapers of other players, opening Notepad and executing code on their, CMD command window. So these are all things that you're able to do from the game with the exploit. So I don't know if that helps you to answer or not.
Okay, then that's a very powerful attack. Okay, but let me maybe reread the last question about login credentials and banking information. Are they supposed to be encrypted? Are you referring to like the Steam login information? What exact login information are we referring to here?
Yeah, I guess like login informations for your Steam account, Microsoft account that you're using while playing, or if you have like tokens on your browser or stuff like that.
Maybe I can answer the question from this angle. If you have this attack and you can run arbitrary code on someone's machine, on the host machine, it doesn't matter what the login credentials are if you can cause other harm. Like, I mean, depends on what you want to do, of course, but you could, I guess, delete system 32, at least in theory. In practice, I'm not so sure about that. It depends on the permissions and stuff, but in theory, you could probably do it. But that is unrelated to the login credentials. About it being encrypted, that's the thing. I don't know how the authentication works in Call of Duty. Maybe it is already encrypted. I honestly don't know.
My guess is probably no. Knowing like how Call of Duty treats these games, like these exploits have been known for years, never been fixed. Oh my god. Hold on. I got a follow alert. It's so loud. Thanks for the follow, Rio. Appreciate it. I forgot I had the alerts on. Okay, I guess I can take off the image now. I think we're pretty much done explaining that. I'm sorry, was I answering something before I got the alert? I forgot what I was talking about.
The authentication encryption.
Yeah, I don't think, like, I would be very surprised if it is, to be honest. Okay, I have a question from, well, again, I'll come back to this one. Let me just write it down.
Can I just quickly add something about encryption and stuff?
Yeah, go for it.
Normally, if it's something that happens online and it's like password based, your information is encrypted anyway. Normally,
So
if a company doesn't encrypt, yeah, like let's say you have a username and a password. If you send a password, it's usually encrypted when you it's technically not encrypted, it's hashed on your machine before it gets sent. Basically, if you like go to a website and you make an account, unless the website is horribly unsafe, which shouldn't happen nowadays, but it can happen, I guess. You never send your password in the actual plain text. You always hash it before, and the server doesn't actually store your password in the plain text either, unless it's like horribly insecure, which can happen but shouldn't.
Yeah. So basically, unless you have a notepad on your PC with all your passwords written out, I don't think, you know, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay. So we had someone earlier talk about saying that they got hacked on World War II, and they said that they wiped Windows and reinstalled, and asked if there was anything else that they should do. If someone is victim of an attack of RCE like this, what's your recommendation that they should do, knowing that the attack, you know, can change wallpaper and everything, because that seemed to change your perspective on it?
Okay, so I cannot give a clear answer because I, again, don't know the exact scope of this attack. I don't know what it can and what it cannot do. But I can tell you for sure that if you reinstalled Windows, which I think might have been a bit of an overreaction, but if you reinstall Windows, you're fine. The thing is, I guess the code execution would happen in the moment, right? Unless it downloads something in the background that keeps tracking you. But even then, the thing is that normally Windows security is good enough to prevent stuff like that, unless you get like a prompt. There's something called user access control. It's the annoying prompt you get whenever you start a program. It says, do you want to launch this program, blah, blah, blah. Normally that should show up if you have like a remote program installed or something like that. But then again, I can't really give you a definitive answer on that. What I can tell you for sure is that you don't need to do any other steps other than the ones you've already taken. I think you're more than fine.
So let's say, for example, that someone uses the RCE, and let's just pretend that the RCE is like the worst case scenario and it can do like the worst things. What if the attacker stealthily installs some kind of remote access Trojan on the computer? Do you think that Windows would detect that?
Hard to say. A lot of times, yes, but not always. I am honestly not really too sure about this. I'm not going to give a definitive answer because I don't want to give misinformation.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so basically, in relation to that, I actually had a question about RCE, because I know it can crash your game, but if you, like you said, if you change the return address, then it keeps flowing. Do you think players would notice if they receive an attack, or do you think it's possible for someone to execute the code without them even knowing about it?
Okay, so that's a very good question. It is intuitively, I would say it is definitely possible to do it completely stealthily. There's actually also like an art in return-oriented programming to do it in a way that no one will ever know that it happened unless they pay very close attention to logs and notice weird control flow redirects or something like that. But yes, it is possible if the attack is cleverly constructed. It is possible to cause harm or change things without anyone ever noticing. Yes, that is possible.
Okay. And so if someone just played Call of Duty World War II while let's pretend someone played and they're worried that something might have happened to them, but they're not sure because they're not able, they didn't see anything happen weird, but they're still worried that maybe someone stealthily attacked them. Is there anything you would recommend that they do? Maybe some programs to clean their PC properly or try to look for anomalies?
Can you please repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I know it was formulated pretty bad.
No, I just my attention slipped away. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So let's say someone played the game, and as you mentioned, it's possible for someone to send an attack like stealthily, and they're worried that something might have happened to their PC, like they might have gotten attacked, but they don't have any proof, they didn't notice anything weird. Is there any programs or recommendations you would give them to check if their PC might have been attacked?
It depends on what exactly happens, but I think in the most cases there's not really much you can do at that point. But let me preface that I think such an attack is maybe not too probable, and if if something happens like stealthily, if it's something really bad, if let's say there is some remote program running, maybe an antivirus couldn't detect that, but I'm honestly not too well versed again to give a exact answer on that. But I personally would judge that to be a bit unlikely to happen, even though it's possible.
Okay. Let me see. We had a question from Paul. I'm gonna answer the first part here. How about Infinite Warfare campaign and zombies? So honestly, if World War II is compromised, I think it's safe to assume that Infinite Warfare is as well. So I would not recommend playing it online whatsoever. You can play campaign and zombies in offline mode just fine if it allows it on PC. I don't remember if it does. There's sadly no clients for Infinite Warfare, so if you can't play offline, I just would not play it.
Can I quickly add something to the previous question?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's say you have a tool running on your computer that's in general, not just related to this specific attack, and you worry there's something that might be grabbing information. What you can do is check your network logs and see if there's like a connection that is a bit suspicious. Like if your PC sends data in bursts and like every so and so many seconds or minutes, then you have a good indication that something might be going on. And at that point, I would try to disconnect from the internet and get the antivirus program and then let it run. If it doesn't detect anything, if you're sure it's actually a malicious tool, you can maybe Google on different device, like what a connection is, if it's normal or not. You can probably find that. And if it's something that is not supposed to be there, I guess in the worst case scenario, you can reinstall. I believe theoretically there might be super strong viruses or Trojans or malware in general that can maybe even persist through a Windows reinstallation, but then you can just check again. And if that's still an issue, which at this point is not too likely, but if that still is an issue, I would honestly go try to get some professional help or Google about what to do, because I directly don't know what I would do. I would also myself look up what to do in that case. But yeah, theoretically possible. If you're worried about something like that, check your network outgoing data, and that should give you an indication.
Is there a tool that you would recommend in order to do that? Maybe like Wireshark or something?
You can use Wireshark. Wireshark is always good to really be on the technical side of the data gets transferred. There might be other software specifically for this kind of purpose that I am not aware of. And even if I was, I wouldn't really advertise it or anything because I want to be impartial. But I am not personally aware of a tool like that, but it probably exists.
Okay. Rio asked, and again, I just want to say that Distro, he learned about the exploit on Call of Duty yesterday. He's not an expert specifically on RCE in on Call of Duty, but I guess I'll still ask the question just in case you might have an answer to it. The person who got attacked on World War II is asking, because when he was playing the game, he's had a text file open from his notepad, and the text basically said, oh, you've been RC'd, whatever, contact this person, right? And that's the common thing that's been going on around. But the interesting thing is his game was still running fine, even with the notepad open. But the second he closed the notepad, it crashed his game. Yeah, do you think you can explain that, perhaps?
Okay, I don't know what the exact code is, but I can explain maybe what I intuitively think happened.
Yeah.
There was probably some kind of blackmail attack, do this and that, give me money or otherwise blah blah blah, or
well,
I don't know what the notepad said.
I mean, it was kind of a meme of that, because the person to contact is an Activision lawyer, right? So it was more like of a joke thing.
Okay, so in that case, I would say intuitively that you're not in danger or anything. So let me preface with that, so you have some ease of mind.
Yeah.
At least theoretically, it could still be dangerous, but I doubt it. That's my how I would evaluate the situation. But what happened probably is he got remote code execution on your machine, opened the notepad via some kind of system call or like something in Windows. Got to open Notepad, pre-wrote some text in it, and he probably coded it in a way that when you close Notepad, it would basically crash your game. And there's probably many ways to do that, especially if you have like RCE. You can probably make it crash with a very simple line of code. I don't know directly how he would do that, but I know it's possible.
Yeah, there's like, from what I know, there's hundreds of different ways that people can crash your game in every Call of Duty game. So yeah, it's definitely something that's really prevalent.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
So the thing about this specific case is, I think that was more of a troll thing, but it shows how powerful such an attack can be and how dangerous it can be. Someone who's more malicious and who wants to make money out of it can scare someone into, let's say, I don't know, sending money via Bitcoin or something like that. So yeah, it shows how dangerous it can be. Not necessarily always from like what the attack itself can do, but a lot of the attacks that work nowadays are more psychological. It's social engineering. Like you scare someone to thinking they can do something specific when they actually can't. In this case, maybe they can actually do some very harmful stuff, but even if they can't, it's enough to scare someone into being terrified that they're hacked, their machine is gonna, I don't know, spy on them and then get them to deliver money or something, even though you actually don't have any powers beyond that. Something to keep in mind.
Right. So I know a lot of the attacks. So there's mod menus for the Call of Duty games, right? That you can download, and these mod menus will have like pre-selected, like you just have to click and you can do an RC attack, right? It's like already coded for you in that software. So usually these mod menus only have like a few selections of types of RC you can do, like open browser. People usually use those mod menus to troll other people, and the most common thing is people open porn on their second monitor to, like, as a joke, right, for streamers and stuff. So you can, basically the wallpaper, the browser stuff, the notepad stuff, I think all of that is part of those mod menus and is like easily accessible to any player, even if you don't know how to code, right? But what I think is scary is someone who actually codes their exploits, and actually try to do malicious stuff with it. And so far, again, we haven't really seen anyone like lose their bank account from playing COD World War II 2 days ago. It's not something that anyone has really talked about. So I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if there's people out there that could do it. But so far, it seems like someone distributed some kind of mod menu that allows, joke RCEs, if we can call them that. And that's what people are using. Yeah.
Okay, I want to add something to that very quickly. I don't know how security works in browsers when an external tool tries to steal data. I'm going to be honest. Yeah, it's something I don't know. I've done web security, but it's more like a website is malicious or the browser itself is malicious. But I've never really looked into the issue of an external tool trying to steal data from, like on the same PC, trying to steal data from the browser if it has full permissions. I don't know what you can do there. But what I can say is that either way, you should, as a good security practice, enable two-factor authentication wherever you can. That will already mitigate a lot of problems potentially. And the other thing is to, if possible, use different passwords for every site. You can use a password manager, for instance. Like, I personally don't know most of my passwords. They're all different and they're random, and I use a password manager. That would be like one example.
Yeah, that's definitely a good advice. Okay, we have a question from 1-2. He says, would the guest say that RCE is more dangerous than the so-called stealers, malicious links that you click on and they steal browser data? Yeah, so I think he just kind of answered that, but I'll let you...
Yeah, okay. Intuitively, I would say it is more dangerous. The RCE, I mean. Stealers are not nice either, but I think intuitively, simply because it seems that the scope, potential scope of the attack of an RCE is basically infinite almost. It makes it more dangerous, at least in theory, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so to add to that, where Rio says the premise of that question is, since the hacker is able to gain access to the PC, then they should, in theory, be able to grab web cookies, passwords, and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is what I asked before. I actually don't know if you can do that. It seems somewhat plausible, but I am not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, beyond that, even if you don't steal web data, I think the RC exploit is more dangerous based on the other things you could theoretically do.
Right. Mundane Man asked, what COD game on PC is safe to play multiplayer? Well, right now, all the CODs that are on dedicated servers are safe. So you can play Black Ops 6, all the most recent games, really. Let's say Modern Warfare 2019 up to Black Ops 6 are safe in terms of RCE. COD 4, if you install the community patch. World at War, if you install community patch by joining the dedicated servers. Other than that, from Modern Warfare 2 all the way up to potentially Black Ops 4, these are all compromised. Okay, good to know. I'm the one from Twitter whose tweet blew up. Thank you for doing this. I'm learning a lot and feeling better. Oh, okay. I didn't recognize your name, but I'm pretty sure I've seen your tweet then. But yeah, I mean, my pleasure. And yeah, thanks again, Distro, for doing this, taking the time to inform us about this. At least we can help people, like you said, feel a little better.
Yeah, I'm glad I can contribute to that. But then again, I don't know every single detail. It's a very vast field in cybersecurity. I dabble more into, I would say, more into the cryptographic side of things. Encryption, decryption, digital signatures is what I mostly deal with. And I have some general security overview, but I'm going to be honest, instead of like pretending to know something I don't, I honestly say, hey, I'm not so sure about that, or like take it with a grain of salt. In general, even if you have an expert or something, you should always double check your sources and information you get. That's true everywhere, basically. Also for me, if you like are like, is that true? I'm not so sure. Double check it, please. I welcome you to that. But to the extent of my knowledge, I try to help as much as I can.
Yeah, and for for the YouTube video, if you guys are watching, if there's anything that you think needs to be corrected, please just do in the comments, and I'll make sure to give a like to it so people know the correction. I'll probably put a pinned comment with anything that is relevant to that, to the conversation that people want to add or correct in some way. Talking of corrections, we have Rand Shiro who just said use a modded client for Infinite Warfare. There are no modded clients for Infinite Warfare as far as I'm aware. They've all been cease and desisted by Activision. And if you're gonna be downloading a client made by the community that has been cease and desisted, that means that the original creator is not the one distributing it. I would not recommend you to download it because who knows what they've put in the files. Okay, Tactical says mod menus are built in with RCE. Yeah, pretty much.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go for it.
If I let's say I was a malicious hacker, yeah, and I see an exploit like that, I think the most simple way to exploit that is to actually write a tool that is like a mod menu that will do those pre-selected things. But if I was very malicious and clever about it, I would just have the actual program attack the PC that is running the program. Let's say, yeah, you have to keep that in mind too. Like, oh, cool, I have a hacking program, but how do you know someone who can do that already, who writes something like that? How do you know they're, well, quote unquote, honest because they already have a hacking tool? But like, how do you know they're gonna be loyal towards you as a random internet user? Maybe they have, for instance, ransomware on it or something. You don't know that. Maybe you run the program and you're like, hey, fun, I can open Notepad on someone's PC, but then in the background, it encrypts your own data and then deletes the key, and then it's basically ransomware. It asks you for money, so it unlocks the hard drive again, and that's like a common attack.
Oh, I'm
So,
sure
yeah.
plenty of those mod menus are just like that, to be honest. And I would not recommend anyone to use them, obviously. Okay, this is a lawyer question. Can they get sued for this? What's your opinion?
I am not a lawyer, and I am not even going to attempt to answer that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, if they, I feel like someone would have sued them already.
I mean, there could maybe be some kind of class action lawsuit or something like that because of negligence. But again, I am not a lawyer. Different countries as well. I am from Luxembourg. I don't know the international laws. I don't even know my country's own laws for the most part. So yeah, I'm not going to answer that.
Sounds good. Okay, is the problem peer-to-peer, just as asks, or is it just Activision doesn't seem to bother patching these exploits?
Okay, so that is a really good question, in my opinion. I would say peer-to-peer is not the best design in general, not only because of the RCE issue that exists here specifically, but also because you can easily grab someone else's IP and, for instance, DDoS them or something similar. But to the question, is it just that Activision doesn't seem to bother patching these exploits? Well, beyond the first part of the answer that I gave, I don't have the code, but I personally believe that maybe I'm wrong about that, but I personally believe from what my knowledge of what I've seen, that it's literally only one line of code you have to change. Basically, what happens is that I said you could, like, for instance, get user inputs or input to a buffer on the stack. And if you don't do a bounce check, and that's that's a critical part, in modern programming languages, it usually does it automatically for the most things. Like when you allocate a buffer, it does a bounce check automatically. In C and C++, C Sharp, maybe, actually, C and C++, these things usually are not bounce check. You have to do it yourself as a programmer. So basically, what I think is happening is that there is a function in the game, and I think I read the GitHub thing. I think it mentioned the specific function, and it doesn't do a bounce check for the array. So when the user has like input into it that goes beyond it, instead of like saying, hey, this is not supposed to happen, it just lets it go through. You overwrite the stack, and everything is going to to the gutters basically. But yeah, so in my opinion, and I cannot say that for sure, but I'm still quite confident. I think all Activision needs to do to patch this is to add the bounce check to that function. That's literally it. So, like, hey, if there's input above that many bytes, do not allow it, and that's it, I think.
Yeah, so that would basically fix the buffer overflow issue, and then they wouldn't be able to do any attacks, basically. Do you think adding this line of code would fix like every single exploit that people can do, such as crashing your game or disconnecting you from server? Or do you think this would specifically just fix RCE, like in terms of like controlling the other person's PC, right?
Okay, so there are probably multiple paths to do an RCE attack. I think there are probably more functions that do the bounce check. Every one you fix basically fixes a specific vector. And with cybersecurity in mind, I would say you should always assume that your program is insecure. There's always something going on. So intuitively, I would say no, it'll probably not even fix all the RCE issues specifically. And there's probably going to be some other issues as well. You should just always assume that there can always be a critical security issue, or like a small one that you think is small, but actually can be exploited to be much bigger. Because as I said before, ROP, return programming, first started a bit more harmless, but it's like a cat and mouse game, became more and more powerful with the years. And people are very smart. You should always assume that every attacker is smarter than you, and you should try to protect things as much as you can. But to directly answer your question, I don't think it would fix all the issues that exist, and I don't even think it's going to fix all the RCE issues, in theory at least.
Okay. Okay, let me go through my own list now. So we've talked about this. Okay, so we've talked about peer-to-peer a little bit earlier, and Would you say, because we talked about DDoS and all that stuff, or DDoS that people can do while using peer-to-peer, would you say usually peer-to-peer is safe enough for a video game? Like, um, do you think that most games with peer-to-peer are prone to having some kind of RC exploit like this be possible at some point, or is it like really just abnormal for Activision to have this in their games?
Okay, so this is again not a subject I'm too well versed in, but
Right.
I think that peer-to-peer adds many issues that a dedicated server wouldn't have. That being said, dedicated servers probably have some other disadvantages, but I think wasn't there like a year or two ago? What was it? Was it in Apex? Wasn't there like also a hack of a similar kind with RCE? And that's a
Yeah.
dedicated server, right?
Yes, Apex
I,
Legends did have RC, yeah, during a
yeah,
tournament, yeah.
things like that can also exist in other types of well protocols. In this case, I think it's an issue that can exist in both things. And let me clarify that this RC issue is not a peer-to-peer issue necessarily, but the peer-to-peer, like in this specific attack that I know that I read about a bit, peer-to-peer makes it possible in the way that it is possible right now, but it doesn't mean that peer-to-peer is the actual issue directly for the attack. But it's just a bounce check that's missing for an array from what I saw, and that's just bad programming, basically.
Okay. So basically, peer-to-peer allows for the exploit to be ran, but it's not the cause of it.
Yeah, it allows it to be deployed in the way that we know about today.
Right. Do you think if they, let's say they go back and instead of fixing the actual code, they just add dedicated servers to all the games, the old ones that are compromised, do you think that there would still be a way for people to figure out a way to use those exploits? Or I know that this is a bit outlandish of a question, I'm just curious.
Okay, so I think people will find other ways to break it. Again, it was just bad programming from what I've seen. It's should always have bounce checks if you write in C or C++, which I assume they use C++. I don't actually know that, but it would make sense. And I don't think dedicated servers would necessarily fix the issue. Like this specific one that I know about would be fixed because it uses peer-to-peer, but it doesn't mean that a dedicated server will fix all the issues. No, you should always assume there's going to be something that's possible, and you should try to keep things as secure as possible. And when you know about them, and that's the thing, you should patch them as soon as you can because that's critical.
Well, they're taking their sweet time. It's almost been like 15 years, but it's okay. I'm sure they'll fix it one day. Right. Okay, so it's interesting you say that because right now, the only safe way for people to play games like Black Ops 2, for example, is a community-made client called Plutonium. And this basically connects you to, instead of connecting to Activision services, it's their own like network infrastructure. And they have a server browser and it's all running on dedicated servers ran by the community, right? And playing on those servers, there doesn't seem to be any issues, and that's how people are playing safely. So do you think these clients could be prone to attacks eventually if someone tried hard enough, or?
It is impossible to predict that, but you should always assume that an attack is possible. It doesn't mean it is, but it's always better to err on the safer side. I think pretty much one of the principles in cybersecurity is to just assume everything can be broken in a way or another. Maybe in like very creative ways. There's some incredible attacks out there for things you wouldn't even dream about normally. But I think the two things I can give people on the way is to either like to first of all try to keep the code as secure as possible by using best practices. You can look them up, especially if you write in C or C++. It's essential to know some basic security issues that you can easily fix. And the second thing is that if something gets found, which is very likely for pretty much any program or any video game in this case, you should have the resources and you should put in the time to fix it as soon as you can. And if it's really, really bad, like in this case, I would literally just Actually, you can't just shut down the servers because it's peer-to-peer, but I would try to shut down whatever I can and try to fix it before I relaunch it.
Yeah, so they've actually shut down the servers for COD World War II on Microsoft Store as of 2 days ago, and they said on Twitter that they're looking into an issue. Which is a funny way. It's just everybody was like, an issue, huh? Anyways, so they have shut down the server for that game, not any of the other ones, but it's the first time we see them actually take action against this. I guess we've made enough noise online for them to do something, but yeah, it's just interesting because it is peer-to-peer, but they still have removed access to any connection to the servers, so you can't log in into the game. So to go back a little bit on like the lawyer things we were talking about, because I've got some updates in the live stream chat here. Rio says, I'm in the process of filing a class action. I have filled a police report and am going to sue for negligence. Well, I wish you all the best and luck in doing that, and I hope it makes a difference, honestly. If you're actually willing to go ahead and sue them for it, then best of luck, man, honestly. Because I strongly believe it should not be legal for them to sell those games $60 full price on Steam and let people get hacked, which is crazy. To add to that, Tactical asks, even if you're not a lawyer, and I know why he asks that, because we mentioned it yesterday on the stream a little bit while talking in chat. You kind of know the due diligence that someone in cybersecurity needs to do when designing a software. And I think he talks about the comment you made yesterday of like, if you're writing code, it's kind of your responsibility to make sure that it's safe. Do you think it's the responsibility of Activision to make sure there's no exploits in their game?
Okay, good question. Again, I am not a lawyer, but what I can answer is that when I said that, I meant like it is basically your obligation as a good programmer to make sure that your code is as secure as possible. Bugs are always possible. If something gets detected, I don't think you should go to you should be sued because of that, because I mean crazy things happen all the time. Like if you just wrote code and it happens to be vulnerable, it's not necessarily your fault directly in that way. But if you have like if you like try to deploy the best practice and stuff like that, then I think you're already on the good side. But then in this case, again, I think whoever wrote this code, I wouldn't blame them. I think Activision would be more on the management side. The thing is, like, this issue would be more on the management side. The thing is that this issue has been known for a while from what I've seen, and Activision hasn't reacted, and it's dangerous. And you said they like launched it on Game Pass or something recently.
Yeah.
And,
so yeah, I can go into that a little bit because it would bring me to another question I have. So if you're done with your point here, I can go into the Game Pass release.
Yeah, so about that, like again, I'm not sure what the legal paths here are, what's possible, what isn't, especially because international law. But the thing is, if they know about the issue, they know it's remote code execution, which is really bad, or it can be really bad, and they release it on Game Pass, where like a broader audience is gonna basically jump into it. That's just, in my opinion, that's negligence, and I could maybe see it going through the court, but again, I can't really assess that. I also don't want to like say anything too bad about a big company like that. But the thing is, yeah, I can see why it makes sense to maybe try to go the legal path. But yeah, to answer it, I think the question was more of the lines of, yeah, I don't think that the programmer who wrote this should be necessarily liable for that at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the dev's fault either, necessarily. Okay, so I have a question in terms of, because we have the Steam versions and we have the Microsoft Store versions of each game on PC, okay? The Steam versions are the ones that were released yearly ever since 2007, and they've had exploits in them on Steam for years that have been known, and everybody knew about it. Recently, in December last year, they re-released the games on Microsoft Store, and they've actually updated some things. There are different versions. Notably, they've modified the code to be from 32-bit to 64-bit, and people seemed to be saying that this would help against the exploits. Do you think it's true?
So what are the exact changes? Is adjustment from 32-bit to 64-bit, and other than that?
Yeah, from 32 to 64, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of your question.
Yeah, is that the only change?
Well, as far as I know, that's the only change, yeah. There's no ASLR or anything that were added, it's just, that's it.
Okay. About ASLR, I'm going to get to that later, but first, let me answer your question before I forget it. So, how do I phrase that? Actually, I forgot the question. I'm sorry. I have ADHD. I forgot.
No problem. 32 bits to 64-bit.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, sorry for that. So I don't think that's going to solve anything. It's going to make it a bit harder maybe because it's a different type of assembly, but the exact same attack, the exact same thing will still work. Nothing changes. It's just you have to use a different flavor of assembly, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
It is a bit harder though in the implementation, but it's technically still the exact same exploit.
Right, because there's more memory running, I guess, so it's harder for people to do it, but it's still possible.
It's just a different calling convention and stuff. Like how the code works on the hood is different a bit, and you just have to learn that, and then you can write an exploit for that. That's pretty much all the difference.
Okay, well that's good to know, because I was under the assumption that, well, not necessarily would make it 100% safe again because no ASLR, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I was under the assumption that it would at least make maybe some of the exploits harder to do. Well, or not able to, but from what you're saying, it doesn't change much, basically.
Yeah, the current tools wouldn't work because they're based on 32-bit. If you go, if you remember the picture I showed you before with the stack, basically the only thing that changes is that well, the return addresses are, I think, bigger, twice the size, and that's pretty much it. And the assembly itself is a bit different, but you have to use another thing, like could make it more complicated, but it's not really something that's gonna stop it. You have to write. Actually, in this case, it doesn't matter, so never mind what it's gonna say. But it doesn't fix anything. It just makes you have to write different attacks, but just adapt them. It doesn't fix it.
Okay, so that's actually pretty interesting because when the game released on Game Pass, for the first like 48 hours, I haven't seen any reports of anyone getting hacked or anything, and then suddenly on the third day, a bunch of reports came in. So my guess is probably they had to, like you said, like update their tools in order to make it work with the 64-bit, and when it started working, then they could do it again, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the way I can explain that, 64-bit basically just changes how big the variables are that are allocated in memory, and it speeds up things. That's the point of it. But the buffer is still there. It still doesn't have a bounce check, and an attacker can still write up into the memory where it's not supposed to write. It can redirect the control flow. So it doesn't change anything other than that you have to adapt the code, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Do you want to talk about ASLR protection and how this could help in this situation, perhaps?
Okay, so I heavily assume that ASLR is already used because modern OS has already used that. Windows has a different name for it, I believe. I forgot what it's called. ASLR is usually the term used in Linux. But basically what ASLR is, because I explained the attack from before, if you remember, if you want to redirect control flow, the thing is you need to know where the gadgets, so the parts of the code that you want to use for your exploit, you need to know where they are in relative memory because you want to jump there, right? And what ASLR does is that whenever you launch a program, it randomizes where exactly in the stack or in the memory the files are, basically. But the relative addresses are still the same. That's why this works. Like if you launch Call of Duty, it has a random spot on the stack, but the memory places for the game itself are always relatively in the same place. I guess they could use an inside the game ASLR mechanic that could maybe mitigate things, but it wouldn't necessarily be a fix, I would say, because there are other ways to find memory addresses that you need. It makes attacks more difficult, but I say it's always a cat and mouse game. I'm sure there's some smart attackers out there that will figure out a way to still find out exactly where they need to go and make it work.
Even if it's randomized?
Yes.
Okay.
There are some tricks for that that you can use. It's a bit more like advanced and complicated, but the ASL already is a thing. But if you mean like actual randomization inside the game itself, like if the game itself does that, that could mitigate things, but probably not fix them.
Okay. Okay, let me read some of the chat.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
A way easier fix would be to add that one line of code for the bounce check.
That's really all they need to do.
And then add ASLR on top as a mitigation, but not as a fix. That's what I would do.
Right. Sounds simple enough.
Disclaimer, I don't see the code. I don't know if I'm right or not, but it seems to me like it's a one line of code issue.
Sounds good. So many people are gonna get their PC hijacked in the next few days with all these CODs coming to Game Pass unaware. Well, they've shut down the servers, thankfully, so at least that's gonna slow down the issue. And let's hope that they actually fix it before turning them back online, obviously.
Now, can I just add one thing? It is very possible that it's way more complicated than I think it is if they need days to figure it out, because I'm pretty sure these guys are not stupid. I think they know what they're doing, at least more or less. I mean, they can hire me if they want to, but the thing is, if they need days for it, I really believe that it's maybe harder than what I imagine it is.
Right. Okay.
But then the issue still exists that they shouldn't have launched it on Game Pass and should have maybe taken it off earlier and fixed it before launching it.
What are you playing? This is footage from Black Ops 2 on Plutonium, obviously. Okay. So that's really interesting because I really thought that ASLR protection would prevent, like, because of how randomized it is, I really thought that it would be like a foolproof solution, but you've proved to me that even with 64-bit and ASLR, it would still be possible if they don't fix the code necessarily. Speaking of the code, maybe, you know, to give a little bit more of a context on this, COD is using a game engine. It's based on Quake 3's engine, so it's a really old engine. It's a modified version of that engine that they've constantly updated every single release, right? It's a yearly release cycle, and every time they have a different version of the engine. Different studios had different versions that they've created their own for their own game franchises inside of Call of Duty, such as Black Ops or Modern Warfare. You know, they're technically different versions of the engine. Yet all of them seem to have the same issue. And a lot of people say that it's the exploits are rooted so deeply in the game engine, and it would all be from the Quake 3 engine from, like, I don't know, 1994 or whatever. Do you think that it might be true that it's rooted way too deeply into the engine for them to be able to fix it and not break everything else?
Okay, so I know practically nothing about game dev.
Right.
If they have access, I guess it's some kind of library inside the Quake engine. I don't know exactly how the interdependencies work in a game engine. I don't know how any of that works. Theoretically, maybe it will cause some other issues, but if it's just a bounce check that can be implemented, then I don't see how, at least not directly. It doesn't mean that I'm right about that, because I literally don't know. But from my assessment of the situation, if you can literally just add the bounce check, I don't see why it would break anything else.
Lollipop, oh,
Okay. I think that's a fair answer.
That being said, yeah, I'm gonna wait for the alert. Just let me know when I can go again.
Okay. Thanks for following Renegade. Okay, go for it.
What was I talking about?
I need to get rid of this alert. Fuck.
No, it's fine.
We were saying the CUD engine. Fuck, I forgot to.
Yeah, we were talking about. No, I forgot again. Now, okay. What I wanna add is that there is a very realistic chance that I don't really understand how easy it is to fix the issue, but it is a bounce check issue. And if they can fix a bounce check issue somehow, then I don't think it will cause issues anywhere else. Because let's say if there's anything that broke the bounce check issue anyway, it would crash the game because it would override the return address or something random, basically.
Right.
So I don't think I think the issue is to actually fix that bounce check. I don't know if that's easy or not. Intuitively I would say it's probably easy, but I don't know that. I could be very, very, very wrong about that. But let's say it gets fixed, then I actually don't remember what point I was making. I'm sorry. I think I already said what I want to say anyway.
Yeah, no, that's good. But it's definitely something they can fix as long as they take the time to do it, no matter how easy or not easy it is. In fact, Black Ops 3 had 4 of its RCE exploits patched, I believe it was in 2023, and the game didn't break. So they didn't patch any of the other exploits, such as crashing your game, disconnecting you, or doing anything to fuck with you, like reset your rank and stuff like that. But they did fix the 4 like critical exploits that could control your PC remotely. My guess is if they fixed it for BO3, I don't see why they couldn't fix it for the other ones. They're all basically the same engine, just modified. But
yeah, intuitively I would agree with you.
Yeah, that's it's probably more complicated than we think, but on the surface it seems simple enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I made a community post this morning asking questions from my subscribers. One of them was by user Ari0-9876. They asked, what measures should you take if you get RC'd? We've already touched on that. But to add to this discussion, to circle back to what you can do to protect yourself or what you should do if you've been attacked, do you think playing the game in a virtual machine, for instance, would allow you to be protected while playing those games?
Yes, but the issue would be performance. But theoretically, a virtual machine separates the host memory from the guest memory, and I could be wrong, but from my knowledge, you should be like your main OS will be protected. Yes.
Okay. And do you think there's any way for them to be able to notice that it's a virtual machine and creep through to your actual hardware?
There are theoretically ways to find out that you're running in a VM for sure. VM standing for virtual machine. Yes. But even if they found out, they couldn't really do anything about it. At least not according to any of the attacks that I know. The only thing that could maybe work is some kind of side channel attack, but that is so advanced and maybe a bit more unknown that I don't think like my assessment is that if you run in a VM, your hosting OS is definitely secure. You just shouldn't worry about it at all.
Okay, so if you want a foolproof solution, to playing those games, just run a virtual machine. That's what I've been saying in my videos, and I'm glad that you can confirm it for me. Because
Yeah, for sure.
I believed it, but it's great to have actual confirmation from someone who knows exactly what I was talking about in terms of that.
I mean, there are theoretically some really out there attacks that are not really gonna, I think, cause issues realistically. And I think not many people even know about them.
Okay.
But even then, let me also clarify: the harm you could do is kind of very, very limited. It's more, it's not gonna be super. It's not gonna be RCE on your main machine. That's something I can say. The thing is, like, the whole concept of the VM is that the memory is like strictly separated. That's like the main thing, and you'll be fine if you get RC'd in the VM. You cannot be RC'd in the hosting machine, at least not to my knowledge.
Okay. Renegade asked, wouldn't running games on the VM be hardware intensive? Yeah, but honestly, if you're running like, I don't know, CUD 4 from 2007, I think if you have a pretty good rig, you should be able to handle it. Probably maybe not for games like World War II though, which are, But yeah, of course it's going to be hardware intensive. I know that some ordinary gamers on YouTube has some guides for gaming VMs that he's able to run Cyberpunk on, which is a very intensive game in of itself. So I would recommend that you look up his guides if you're interested in playing these games in a VM. He's probably able to set you up with a decent gaming virtual machine. Okay. Let's go to, in a similar subject, let's say someone doesn't want to go through the trouble of virtual machine, or they don't know how to do it or whatever. There's programs that were recommended to me for like anti-exploit programs, such as Malwarebytes anti-exploit. What it does is when you open the program, you can put like an executable in it that you put into a shield. And when the anti-exploit program, like, when it recognizes a RCE attack being thrown at you, it will close the app that you're using that is in the shield of the program. So let's say you install an anti-exploit, you put Call of Duty as a shield in it, it detects an RCE, it closes Call of Duty to avoid any further intrusion. How safe do you think these programs can be to use while playing those games? Have you even ever heard of any programs like that?
Okay, my apologies, but can we take a 3-minute break? I'll answer. I'll leave it on a cliffhanger.
Okay, yeah, go for it. No problem.
Yeah, small. I need to get something to drink. I need to use the bathroom, so I'll be right back.
Sounds good, man. You just got your foot into PC gaming within the last month after I went from Xbox. Yeah, welcome to PC Master Race. Honestly, I love gaming on PC. I also used to be on Xbox, and I just couldn't go back now. It's so unfortunate that the COD franchise is in such a shitty state on PC, honestly. I just want to play BO2, man. You use Malwarebytes, it's great. Yeah, I love it. It's pretty good. If you start doing malware protection, can you be flagged for cheating? Bro, they don't flag anything for cheating in those games. Even on the most recent one, there's so many cheaters. I was on Xbox since 2006. I feel you. I was always an Xbox owner until I got a PC. I didn't get like the Xbox Series X or anything. Same for GTA 5 and Red Dead Online infested with cheaters. It is, unfortunately. Although, I'll say Red Dead Online is not as bad. I've actually been playing it recently. There's some modders, but it's not on the level that GTA 5 was years ago. I just remember, like, it being chaos on there. Speaking of GTA, it used to have RCE exploits as well, which they fixed. But and I'll come back to this when distro comes back. But the interesting thing about GTA was, actually, I'm gonna save that for later because I want to ask distro this question. I don't want to forget it. So remind me about GTA 5 if I don't come back to it. After this, I don't think I will ever be playing another COD game. Yeah, no, I feel you. Getting attacked must really suck. You still on Xbox? You don't play games with it. You still prefer Xbox? That's fine. Good for you. You can play COD all you want. Yeah, GTA 5 before the oppressor was lit. I remember playing GTA 5 online on the 360, like at launch. So much fun. Everybody, what was it? The Adder? There was like one car that cost like 1 million in every. It was like a prestige icon to own this car, right? And you would do like this one mission over and over because it was the best paying one just to get that car. It was so much fun.
All right, I'm back.
All right, welcome back.
I just before I answer your question, I just realized something actually very significant about fixing the issue. There is a possibility, some kind of precompiled library that they use, and then they basically have like the network functions that are vulnerable running through there. If that's the case, which is actually not even that unlikely, it is quite a bit harder to fix it for them.
Yeah, so they would basically be using like a pre-made, like you're saying, like a library of code.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would make it way harder. I just thought about that and it actually makes sense.
That's probably why it comes back every game they release, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what it looks like, but if that's the case, that makes things a bit harder. Still fixable for sure, and I still think it's negligence to launch it on Game Pass in that state, but that makes things quite a lot harder. Maybe in your edited video, you can do like a asterisk note. Hey, he's gonna add something about that later.
Oh, I could edit it like in the same section. That's fine. Yeah. But no, that's a good point that you're bringing because that makes a lot of sense to me. And it's because I feel like if it was only one line of code, they would have fixed it by now. That's how I feel. But maybe they're just really that lazy. Who knows? But yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, that makes it way harder. Especially if you set this from the like engine, different games and stuff. It's probably some kind of pre-made compiled code, and it's definitely going to be harder with that.
Mm-hmm. Rio says my video is at 2.3 million views. I'm so glad it got out there, and I thank people like you for talking about it and bringing awareness to the problem. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. I feel the same way. You know, I released a video last year that got like 300,000 views talking about the exploits, and I'm just happy that people are aware of it. Yeah, let's keep talking about it. Let's keep spreading awareness, and let's keep reporting the games, and hopefully there's some change. I agree. Okay, what was my question originally?
It was about some external tools that have like some kind of shield mode, like Malwarebytes, something. I don't know the name. You were asking me if I even know these programs. I honestly don't. First I'm hearing about that. There are similar things that it's like it's monitoring code. And from my experience, especially from like in mobile security, there's a lot of very similar things happening. We have like some kind of program or application that is shielding the application that's running inside of it, kind of like a VM. The idea is very similar in a way. And from my knowledge from other fields where something like this is applied, it is once again a mitigation, but probably not a fix. In this case, I think it makes it way more difficult for an attack, but not necessarily impossible. But I can't tell you if it's actually going to fix it or not. But I can say is it probably helps a lot. I don't know exactly how it works, but from the way I like know these things, I think it's going to be like a good security, but I assume it can be bypassed or exploited in some other way that isn't known right now. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it is probably possible.
Yeah, that makes sense because, you know, what I always recommend in my videos is, use a VPN, so because it's peer to peer, and also Malwarebytes anti-exploit because, it's not foolproof, but it's better than having nothing. And then, of course, I recommend the virtual machine as like the ultimate security thing if you want to play the game. But yeah, so I think just like you that like Malwarebytes anti-exploit probably helps, and it probably, it will close the app, so it's not like he can keep sending you stuff if he does send you something, but it's not something that will like prevent you from necessarily getting attacked in the first place, I don't think. But it's good to have running, I guess.
Yeah, one important thing to add is this Malwarebytes approach is not a fix; it's a mitigation.
Yeah.
It doesn't fix the actual RCE. It just stops it before it gets bad.
Right.
And I would like I can't speak out recommendation necessarily, but I think based on the short thing I've heard, it sounds great in theory if you really want to play these games, which I wouldn't online, which I wouldn't recommend. But if you do, then yeah, do use a tool like that if you can. I mean, it's if it's trustworthy, of course. If it's something random, then of course don't bother. It might be malicious itself, but it probably doesn't hurt to have some extra layers of security.
Right. Okay, I have another question from the community post, and this one's a little bit complicated, so I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. XWeaverX, which is also someone who has been RCE'd on PlayStation, which we can talk about later. He asks, I would like to know if disabling UDP port on your router would prevent your PC from being host on server migration. Because basically he is trying to find a way to avoid people making him host so that the attacks wouldn't like be sent to him. He says he knows Wireshark could detect unusual network packets, and he'd like to know if disabling all UDP ports and how this would affect the gameplay online. Again, I know you're not a game dev, so I don't think this last part you can necessarily answer, but maybe you have a general idea of what closing those ports could do on the game.
Okay, so that's a multi-layered question, or actually a set of questions. So I try to start somewhere. Let's start with the last question. It was what was exactly what happens if you turn off UDP, basically?
Yeah, like how does that impact your online experience in video games?
Okay, so your computer uses UDP pretty much a lot of times, especially in video gaming. It's important because there are two big protocols. One is TCP, which is more of a connection between two servers or two computers via the internet. The other one is UDP, which is one side. You just send data very quickly, and that's the thing. If you play online and you're on a map somewhere, use UDP as a game dev because it will quickly tell the server, hey, I'm here, I'm here, hey, I'm here, multiple times. In TCP, it would be too slow, even though possible. I think maybe modern games do use TCP for that. I'm not sure. But at least back in the day, or maybe nowadays as well, UDP is used because it's way faster, and especially in a game that relies a lot on the ping and like latency and stuff like that, I think UDP is actually the way to go. And if you turned off UDP entirely, besides breaking your internet entirely almost when you go to a website or something, it would also literally just not allow you to play at all because you can't give any position updates and you can't connect to other players. And it would basically break everything. If you block... Well, would you want to add something? Sorry.
Well, yeah. So the reason I think he wants to do that is specifically to avoid connecting to other players, right? Because some of these games, they require you to use the online connection and connect to the servers, even to play solo. And I think what he's trying to prevent is people messing with him while he's in a solo session while still connected to the servers. Do you think UDP, like if it disables the ports, that could help?
Okay, so this is what I was gonna add now. You can block specific ports for UDP in your router. Like you can see which ports the Call of Duty game you're playing uses, and then block them in UDP. And I don't know how the game is coded, but if you can still play solo, then yes, it would block the incoming traffic basically from other players if that's a thing. If you're playing solo, I don't know exactly how it works, but if there is a, like, I don't know exactly how the game is coded, but if there is a specific set of UDP ports you can block and still play offline, then yes, you can do that.
Okay.
But I
What?
don't know if it's gonna break the game or not. I don't know exactly what ports do what exactly. I don't know that.
Okay. Um, so you wouldn't know then if disabling some of these ports would avoid you becoming host during a host migration?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know that, but intuitively, I think if you disable them, maybe you can't connect to others. Like if there's like a specific port that is literally just used to determine who's the host, and if the game can't reach you through that, and then it gives someone else the host, then that would work. But the question is, how realistic is that even? And I, I really don't know. I haven't tried it, but I would say it probably does not work.
Hmm.
But I don't know that. I really don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
Just one thing to add.
Yeah.
I said when you say UDP entirely, your internet breaks. But yeah, the question was I think about specific ports that doesn't break your whole internet connection. Need to clarify that. But yeah, you would need to know what exactly what each port does, and then maybe you can block a certain set, and you can still play the game without being host. I cannot tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's something to consider and maybe try and test out, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if it allows you to play solo without being bothered, I think that's kind of what the T7 patch is trying to do. It's like a worse version of the T7 patch that you would be trying to recreate basically for games that don't have this patch. Um all right, let's talk Renegade Killer. As someone who used to work on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2023, the fact now that they keep using the same engine and running on the HQ system, not only are leaks more prevalent, but it's easier to bypass. And from what I heard from Ricochet, it really doesn't work too well. If anything, Ricochet made the game run worse. I bet. I was on the QA team at Sledgehammer Games 2 years ago. Some of the most stress ever. Yeah, so this is actually Mike, and yeah, he was a QA tester at Sledgehammer. Yeah, I agree. I think Ricochet completely fucks the performance. I know Black Ops 6 runs terribly for me, mostly probably because of that. But I'm curious though, as you've worked on the games, have you, like, maybe that's a dumb question for me to ask, but has there ever been any talk about these exploits at all? Have you ever heard anyone mention it or anything? Has it ever been reported in QA? I'm just curious if you're willing to share.
Good question. I want to know as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. Um, Renegade also says if you disable the UDP port, there are other places to make sure you can connect. Okay.
Yeah, I can't say anything about that. They seem to know what they're talking about, and but either way, as I said before, you should always double check even what I say. Like, don't take it for granted. Always double check your sources.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think they know what they're talking about. I can't say anything to that.
Yeah, well, I can confirm that Mike was on the QA team of Call of Duty World War II. We were actually talking about this yesterday on my Discord because it was quite funny, you know, that he was doing QA for that game, and now he sees this. It's like, damn, you know. It's not a fix, it's just a mitigation. Like Distro said, if you become the host, you can still leave the game. Back in Halo, if your NAT is strict, you have indeed less chance to become a host. Yeah, I guess that's true. If you have bad connection, you have less chance of being host, right? Kind of
Yeah, I mean that
depends.
is a different thing entirely, but
Yeah.
I mean not entirely. It's somewhat related, but yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing is blocking a port entirely that uses the game is a completely different thing than having strict NAT. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in what ways that actually has an impact on the game, I really cannot say. But I did get there's another question. What's a port? Can I answer that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was gonna mention this one. Go for it.
So the internet is a bit complicated, but I think I'll try to explain the easiest way possible. If you connect or like send data to, let's say, a server or a different computer, and let's put this, let's turn it around. You receive data from the internet, and your PC just got the data. It needs to know which program that data has to go to. It could be from, I don't know, Edge, Chrome. It could be from Call of Duty. It could be from Viva Pinata. It could be literally anything. It could be any program that that uses the internet. And to determine for your PC, hey, this actually is supposed to go to this program. Use ports. It's around 50K, a bit more, like 53K ish. Ports exist. Some are like preset for specific things. For instance, if you use HTTP on the internet, you use port 80. But in video games, you use some higher ports that are like arbitrarily distributed. For instance, in Call of Duty, you can maybe use port, I don't know, 42178 to 4300 or something like that. That's an example. I don't know. And but it's basically just an address to know once it arrives. Let's say the packet arrives to your building, the port tells you which apartment or which room it has to go to. If you can receive mail, for instance, that's what the port does. It just says, "Hey, this program wants that." This program receives the data, and that's it. That's a port.
Right. So let's say that, and again, we don't know this, but let's say that one port is to tell players to connect to you, and the other one is simply to connect to the server. If you close the other port, you can still connect to servers, but you can't connect to players. And that's the best case scenario in this case, but we don't know if that's actually how it works. But that's basically like, to answer Weaver's question, basically, is in theory it could work if that's how the game is programmed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really can't add more than that, but that's pretty much summarized. Yes, maybe, maybe not.
Right. Okay. Related to networking and stuff, I'm actually quite curious. Like, let's say someone gets attacked on their machine. Is there ways you think that the attacker could get into the network, let's say like the router or whatever, and mess things up on other devices connected to the same network as the targeted PC?
Okay.
I know this is getting advanced, but just, if you don't know, you can just maybe.
I would say theoretically yes. I think there are some worms that like distribute through the network somehow. If there's multiple devices connected through a switch or a router or something, I can imagine that maybe it can propagate through that. But I've never written code like that, so I'm not too well versed. I think it's possible. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah. It's highly likely, I would assume. But yeah, that would be like a pretty advanced, like you would need to know the RCE like inside and out, I think, to make something like that work. But
I mean, I'd put it this way: if the RCE is really has like full power, then and I think viruses like that exist like for a network, it should be very likely to be possible.
yeah. Ras asks, so should I just delete COD World War II if I'm on Game Pass PC? I mean, just don't play it. If you want to uninstall it, go ahead. They have shut down the servers currently. You cannot connect to the servers. And I'm hoping this means they're fixing it, but until we have official confirmation, I would recommend to play the game even if the servers come back online. I would definitely wait a few days to see if there's not a new exploit that gets discovered. So yeah, I mean, you could uninstall it and reinstall it like in a few weeks and see if it's fixed. Okay. I'm just looking at my list of questions. I think we went through pretty much everything at this point.
Oh, there was another question that was asked a while ago. I'm sorry if that I missed it, but is the guest interested in getting into pen test after graduation? Can I answer that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so for those who don't know, pen test is short for penetration testing, and that's an actual job. Basically, the idea is simple. You get a device of any type, and you're told to break it. For instance, you get, I don't know, a router, and your job is to find a way to break it. You just try everything like to your knowledge, get creative, and find bugs and stuff. And then when you find one, you report it. And it can even be more interesting than that, even because you can be tasked by a company, like a big company that says you, hey, can you check for our security? Like, let's see, can you like get into our servers or in another way steal data from us? And there's actually there was a video from a cybersecurity expert who did pen testing for a company, and it can be really crazy too. He put on a suit of it, like he put an overall on, like a technician or something, and he just entered the back offices of the bank, like, hey, I have to fix a server or something. They let him in, and then what he did is he had an envelope with the CEO's name on it, and he put a USB stick inside and put it on the CEO's office during his lunch break. And when you see on your desk there is a letter with your name on it, I mean, it sounds silly, but even I think at first glance I would say, hey, USB stick in my name in my office, I'll just put it inside, see what happens. Like, what is in there is probably important.
Right.
And then he got basically attacked like that, like his computer was infected by just putting the USB stick inside. So that's how crazy pen testing can get in theory, at least. I thought that was a fun anecdote.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, would I be interested? I mean, sure, why not? It's not really my area necessarily. I have done some system security, which is also part of, which also covers the exploits we're talking about today, partially. I mean, I don't know what kind of job I'm going to land with, but pen testing would be cool. Why not?
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I mean, it proves to you that social engineering is a big part of hacking. Yeah, you didn't even have to do anything. You just gave him the stick and he did it himself, right?
Yeah, the most successful attacks are actually social engineering, by far.
Yeah. Thanks for the answer. No problem. Okay. Well, I think that's all of my questions. Let's see if chat has any more questions. Oh, we just got a big one. Okay, Renegade. Okay, no, he's answering my question earlier about the dev team. Okay. It does get reported the term RCE is a big flag to the studio, but the big problem is with a older game pre-2019. But because of costs and resources are already high to maintain current titles, but if they had to go back and fix each game, and they will have to as they get added to Game Pass, but at the very least all the old games need to be looked over again before being added to PC Game Pass. But with how many people work on COD and so many moving parts, and new content is the focus. So basically what you're saying is they're aware of it, but there's no management that is telling them to go and fix the games, and basically they don't have the permission to go ahead and fix it like on their own. Like there's no like updates that could be rolled out even if someone at the studio was very adamant about fixing it. They would have to go through many hoops in order to get like the okay to go through with it, basically. Is it what I'm understanding?
I just want to add to that. It's like one of the like classics. It always comes down to bad management. Right. A lot of times like this, the manager tries to go faster and faster, and the security gets overlooked or even given up on purpose in some companies, and that's really, really bad practice. But yeah, in companies where basically money rules everything, it is a serious threat to cybersecurity, and it just results into negligence, just for the quick bucks, basically.
Yeah, one person wouldn't make enough of a stink. I see. So there's probably a good amount of devs on Call of Duty that know about the exploits, probably even know how to fix them, but they just can't find the time or get the permission to go ahead and do it. That sucks. I hope, like, and I was talking about this yesterday on my stream, but honestly, it sucks, but the Game Pass situation we're having right now might be, you know, the evil that we needed in order to get things to change. Maybe finally, with all the people talking about it and so many people having been RCE'd, they finally see that this should be high priority and they should actually go ahead and fix those games. So let's hope that at least some good comes out of it, and that it was, you know, a necessary evil that will actually do a difference, right?
Yeah, that's something I want to touch upon as well. The thing is, the problem is they're being reactive and not proactive, and that's in cybersecurity is always a problem. And
yeah,
maybe they will fix it now, but this shouldn't have happened, given that they knew about it, and yeah, they were about to release on Game Pass. They should have known better. It's just negligence, in my opinion.
yeah, because if they knew about it, they were warned about it, they still decided to go through with it. Yeah. And then they shut down the servers. What, did they think that COD players wouldn't abuse it? Yeah. Okay. Well, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead. We're probably going to end this soon, I would imagine. I don't want to keep this throw here forever. I went through my list of questions. A lot of the questions I had were actually asked in the chat, so I didn't really have to go. Mob of the Dead, yeah, best map. Yeah, we've talked about pretty much everything. Maybe something we could touch on again, which I feel like we've talked about and we assumed a lot of things, but what would you say, like, assuming that the exploit has full control, what's like the biggest risks and dangers that this exploit could have on your PC, you think?
I mean, from what I've heard, if it can launch programs and stuff, it probably has full access. If it has, especially if it has like root permissions, then it can do anything basically. So at least in theory, yeah.
Do you think
it's just bad.
it could break the PC?
I don't know the Windows internal protection mechanisms very well, but if I had to guess, I think yes.
Damn. Okay. Renegade says, I'm not an attorney or anything, but at the very least, they should be sued. Coming from someone who did QA at Call of Duty, that's... Alright, I guess that works for you, Rio, you know? Even if they say they didn't know about it, it doesn't matter because they should have known about it.
That is a bit tricky territory. The thing is, any program can be vulnerable in the craziest ways, and they should have known about it is kind of relative or subjective in this case. I can't really underline the statement, but I understand where it's coming from at least, and I'll just leave it at that.
Right. Something. Okay, so while you were gone earlier, we talked a little bit about GTA, Grand Theft Auto 5, which had RCE exploits as well that were fixed now. One of the interesting things that happened during that time, they've implemented the Rockstar launcher as a third-party launcher, which means when you launch GTA 5 on Steam, instead of it being, it would now launch the Rockstar launcher and then launch the game from there. Like, you're probably familiar with that, I would imagine. Some games that use third-party launchers. When they did that to Grand Theft Auto 5, somehow people were able to mod the single player sessions of people. So I'm not talking about Grand Theft Auto Online, I'm talking about like the story mode that is completely solo. But since you now had to be connected to their launcher, people were able to basically hack people playing the offline story mode. That gets me to think that perhaps there could be a way for people to mess with you even if you're playing the campaign mode of the game, even though you're not necessarily connected in a lobby peer-to-peer with other players. Do you think there's maybe ways for people to use that exploit against players playing the campaign in solo?
You mean in the context of Call of Duty?
Yeah.
Theoretically possible. I don't know how the game is coded. If it works in GTA, maybe. But if you can play solo without a connection, then it should be fine. But I don't know that. I intuitively I think in the old Call of Duty games probably not an issue, but I can't say for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, I always recommend people to still play the campaign offline just to be sure. But I'm pretty much of the same sentiment that I don't think there's anything that could happen. I'm pretty sure you have to be in the same lobby as someone else. Now, here's the interesting thing, and maybe this might help you answer the question is, in Black Ops 2, I know for a fact that people can force join your lobby. As long as they have either your IP address or they have your Steam ID, they're able to locate you and join you and then attack you. I'm not sure if it's some kind of RCE they're doing to force join people like this. I don't really have any reference for you to look at in terms of this exploit, but maybe you have an idea of how they could be doing that?
Honestly, no.
No. Okay.
But I want to add some quick things about what Renegade Killer said. They could delete System32. If they can do that and Windows doesn't stop it, again, I don't know the Windows internal protection mechanisms. If they have that permission, then yes, they can. The RCE attack could just nuke your OS, basically, your whole computer. And another thing, and that's why I'm so against the always online thing. I agree. I am not a fan at all of the always online thing, out of principle, but also, of course, from a cybersecurity perspective, it's just a horrible idea.
Also, from what I know, the DevSecOps are the most well-paid jobs in cybersecurity. I've never heard of it. Have you?
No, can't comment on
No.
that.
Okay. All right. Well, Tactical says that this was amazing and thank you so much for your time, and I agree. Hope you'll have a great career in cybersecurity. Definitely. Yeah, I think we're pretty much at the end here. Unless there's any more questions that you guys want to creep in real quick. Maybe I'll give you guys maybe like 2 minutes to write something up. If you have any more questions, now's the time.
Yeah, if you have any questions, keep them coming. I think we'll do our best to answer as good as we can. I hope we at least got to explain some things and explain maybe we taught you something, and I would love for that to be the case. Unfortunately, I don't know everything, but I'm going to be honest about that. If I don't know something, I'll just say, hey, I don't know. But I hope I could shed some light on a lot of the aspects. And also thanks to Lollipop for having me as a guest. This was super fun, and also learned new things, which is very nice.
Well, honestly, thanks for you for accepting my invitation. I'm really happy that we were able to have this conversation, and I sure know I learned a lot of things from this. Um, Most notably ASLR for sure. You know, a bunch of other stuff. There's just so much information that I can't think of anything else right now. But I'm sure while editing this video, I'll come back. Um, but yeah, thanks so much for taking the time, man. And I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people. I'm going to be making a video out of this, and hopefully it gets a little bit of traction so there isn't that much misinformation going around. Because there's a lot of it out there, and it's really hard to know what's true or not about these exploits. Let's see. Can ironically cloud... Okay, so I guess we have one more question. Cloud gaming would be the safest way to play Call of Duty. I don't know if you're familiar with cloud gaming at all.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's where you basically pay your subscription, something you can play on remote hardware that basically runs the game for you, and you just play through the internet, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's the safest way, but in this specific attack scenario, yes, I guess the cloud computer would be attacked, not you. So in that regard, yes.
I mean, yeah, I guess because you would still be using your own account on the remote computer. So I would say perhaps your account would still be at risk, even if you were playing on cloud.
I mean, there are always other attack vectors, but for this specific attack, yes, ironically, cloud gaming would be safer. I would say it's the safest because there's always other attacks and other things that can happen. But in terms of like the RCE issue, yes, you basically just transfer the picture from the video from one PC that's remote to your place, and you don't get attacked directly. So yeah.
All right. I wish they gave us the cloud gaming option for COD World War II. I don't think it's a thing though, unfortunately, right now. But that would be one way to fix it, I guess. Just make everything on the cloud. Um, just chatting is great. It will be great to do more of that on other subjects. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be nice.
Yeah, you should just take me as an expert every single time. Just say, hey, this guy, you know, you just say, I don't know, he's a nuclear scientist or something, you know, for any subject. Just pretend.
Yeah, every subject we talk about, he's an expert on, obviously.
I just pretend I have like a PhD in whatever you want me to talk about.
Actually, Distro doesn't know shit about programming. I just brought him on here and told him to pretend to say words that made sense. So you guys all got trolled. This is all bullshit, by the way.
Absolutely. But no, on a more serious note, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I do definitely know more than the average person because that's what I studied for many years, basically.
All right. I have a PhD on a PhD. There you go.
So where's the part where I can do a shameless self-plug?
Right now, go for it.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay, so thanks for having me. I am Distro on Twitch. I'm called Distro TV. I do speedruns of Splinter Cell and of Halo games. And I also have a YouTube. I think it's Distro Gaming is the channel name. But yeah, that's it for my shameless self-plug.
Awesome. Check out Distro. Really chill guy. Really good stream. Really good vibes. Always fun to chat on there. I don't really go on Twitch anymore, but when I do, I try to always stop into Distro stream. Definitely one of the ones that I watch the most. Chad asks, is plutonium safe? Yes, as safe as it can be. Splinter Cell haven't heard that in a while. I know, right?
The speedruns are fun if you care about Splinter Cell and you like speedrunning. It's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, I haven't run it myself, but I've learned the speedrun in order to commentate alongside Distro. And there's there's a lot of technicalities that are really interesting, I think, in the speedrun. Sometimes it's as dumb as just like, okay, let's throw a grenade this way so that this happens, and it's like a domino effect. Sometimes it's really fun. I don't know. It's interesting to watch. Distro learned his PhD by playing Splinter Cell. Chad asks, what kind of cybersecurity are you going into?
Okay, so I don't know where I'm going to end up after I'm done with my studies this year, but what I can tell you is that I specialize mostly in cryptography things. So everything that's about encryption, decryption of data, and digital signatures or like hashing and stuff like that. But when it comes to where I'm actually going to end up when I'm working, I don't know that yet.
All right. All right. Well, I think this is a good place to stop. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this was informative. Thanks again, Distro, for coming on and talking about all this. Honestly, I think it's going to help a lot of people understand the situation better. I sure did, and I'll definitely feel more confident talking about the issue in my videos and hopefully not spread as much misinformation because I know I sure have and a lot of people have, and it's always going to be there. But the goal is always to spread awareness, to make people at least aware of the issue, because that's another thing. There's no disclaimers, there's no warnings on these games. People buy these games, they have no idea about any of this. So please share with your friends if you want to keep them safe. If you see people launch these games on their PC, or that I don't know, a family member bought the game and is about to play on their laptops, please tell them about it. And spread awareness, keep talking, and hopefully Activision will do something at some point. That's really all we can hope for, honestly. And Weaver says, thank you for answering the question. Appreciate it. Awesome. Thanks for asking it. Had an interest in cyber in college, majored in math, took a cryptography class, and it was fun. All right.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. And thanks for all the questions. There were some, I think all of them were pretty great. You made things more interesting, more interactive. So
yeah, I'm glad we streamed this.
Yeah.
Because we were just going to record, but we ended up wanting to stream it. I'm glad we did. I think it added a lot to the discussion. So thank you guys for the great questions. I agree. Hopefully old COD can be safe again. Hopefully, man. If only we can have nice things. All right. I'm going to leave it here. Thank you guys so much. And make sure to check out Distro's channel and Distro's Twitch. And also mine. You can check mine if you want. I make videos about Call of Duty not being safe mostly. Although I'm working on different projects, I'm trying to, do other things as well. But, I will always try to keep an eye on the situation here with RCE and COD and try to keep people informed as best I can, alongside my other projects. So if you're interested in any of that, you can also give me a little follow. I guess we have one last question, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay, Weaver is asking, I'm wondering if playing with a VPN would prevent your PC from being RCE'd, since the local IP address source of info for that. Oh, wait, no, sorry. It switched to another message. Would be masked.
Since the local IP address would be masked, is the question. Okay.
Yeah.
I can easily answer that with no, because the data in the end still goes to you, right? It's just like a layer of abstraction. It's just a different server in the middle that you connect to, but the data still goes to you in the end. And like when the host is compromised and you connect to the host, that's the thing. You receive that data, it's not gonna help you. At least, unless I'm missing something, but I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, we already got the answer in the chat as well. Yeah, it's not going to help you.
No,
it doesn't
I don't
protect
think
you.
So either.
Not in this case specifically.
No, not for this case. No. What's the best password manager? Do you have any recommendation?
I refuse to make any recommendations because I don't want to be biased or anything. But I do recommend to look up if there were any security issues with any of the big password managers, just look up which ones are the big ones, and then basically look up, is it secure? Have there been any breaches? And just inform yourself basically and decide for yourself. There isn't necessarily a best one, maybe, but one that you like more UI wise. Just make sure there haven't been any big breaches lately or anything like that, and you should be fine.
All right. Yeah, that's a good answer. I don't really. Yeah, I use one, but again, do your own research. Yeah, VPN would not protect against advanced RCE attack. Exactly.
I also feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about what the VPN does, but
right.
It's not really, and for the most things, not really a protection thing. Like even if you do something illegal, depending, I think in most VPNs you will still be found probably, unless you use like, I don't know, 10 layers or something with like VPN providers that you pay well in some very suspicious country, island or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the VPN is, either way, VPN is never an excuse to do things that are questionable, but that's a different topic.
Absolutely. No, I agree. The only reason I recommend it is so that it spoofs your IP, because again, if people are able to join your lobby by knowing your IP address, then using a VPN can at least prevent that. In terms of Black Ops 2, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we have a follow-up to the UDP ports, because Weaver was the one who asked the question originally, so maybe we can just finish up with this question here. Sounding like just disabling the UDP ports CUD uses is the best case scenario, or playing the game in a virtual machine since it isolates from your host machine. Honestly, the virtual machine is probably just the best scenario altogether, I would say.
Yeah, I concur. About the UDP thing, again, I don't know what impact it has, but if it does actually work, then sure, but I can't comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Renegade Killer said Chore is like the only thing. There's the only thing for what exactly?
To get on the
against an RCE attack?
Tor is like the only thing that could prevent you from the RCE attack, you think? I mean, honestly, virtual machine sounds like probably the best thing you can do.
But yeah, maybe double check that too. I don't want to tell people to you, hey, it's going to be secure on the virtual machine, and then they're going to, I don't know, have the PC blow up or anything like that. Always, again, I say it for like the first time now, but always double check everything I say just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that it would be the best layer of protection. But yeah, I guess it's not 100%. Like, don't take our word for it. Don't sue me if your PC explodes because you used a VM. It's a recommendation, and that's all it is. Don't play online. Don't interact with high-skilled coders who play the game. Well, yeah. At the end of the day, don't play the game. If you're gonna play, use a client, use a virtual machine. Hopefully they fix it. Okay. I think we're gonna wrap up here. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. And thanks again, Distro, for being here. And I'm gonna end the stream before we go on another tangent and have to do this outro for the 4th time. All right. Thank you guys. And I'll see you in the next video.
Bye.